Hi everybody, welcome back to EDU 380. This is the last video that you'll have to listen to today. You won't see me, you'll just hear my voice. I want to go over some important concepts for us to start thinking about as we start thinking about creating our inquiry units. Now remember that the major assignment for this course is a literacy-rich and technology-driven inquiry unit. So in order to create an inquiry unit, we need to understand what inquiry is. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then we also have to know where to begin. Okay, and the place where we begin is knowing where our students are. And why do I say priming the pump? Because we have to be able to motivate students. We have to know what they know so we can help them. So priming the pump is an old saying. If you remember those old pumps on old wells where you have to pump it up and down to get the water to come out. They get air in them and it wouldn't work, and so you had to add more water to it to get it to pick up the water. So it's called priming the pump, and that's kind of what we do when we do scaffolding and front loading and build background knowledge. Is we prime the pump. We get kids interested. We help them to fill in gaps of knowledge they don't know. Okay, and this is very important because oftentimes teachers jump right into a topic without doing this, and kids are lost as teachers get frustrated. So we're going to look at inquiry-based, we're going to look at schema theory and background knowledge, which are very closely related. Then we're going to look at ZPD and gradual release of responsibility, which is a concept for thinking about how we teach students. And then quickly I'm going to look at Bloom's taxonomy, which is in a different item here, but I'm going to put it all in the same video just because I think it will be more expedient for you. And I'm going to try to keep this under 20 minutes. Okay. So here's an article that I've given you that I'd like you to read about inquiry-based learning so we understand what it is, okay? So this is very important. The meaning of knowing has shifted from being able to remember and repeat information to being able to find and use it. So important. In today's technology world and Google, we can touch a button and get the information we want. I can sit at home and access the great libraries of the world and find the information that I need. I can read newspapers from all over the world. I don't need to have as much knowledge in my head as I might have, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. This is an important shift, and it's very hard for a lot of people to make that shift. They still want kids to know stuff. Well, I do too, and I think we do need to help kids know stuff. But the stuff that we want them to know is different than what it used to be, and that's an important thing to think about. Okay. So inquiry, what is inquiry? Inquiry is based on questions of having something to investigate. So for instance, I've done inquiry units in the past, and I was an English teacher, remember? So I've done inquiry units on what makes a good relationship. Okay, what is courage? Bioethics, because we can, should we? These are important questions, and there were more, but I'm not going to go into all of those. But inquiry in its true form tackles real-world questions, issues, and controversies, things that kids care about, or things they should care about. It helps them develop questioning, research, and communication skills. Rather than just telling them and giving them information, it helps them to really, why is this the way it is in the world, okay? Solving problems or creating solutions. The number one thing that employers say about students coming into the workplace is they're not good problem solvers. And the other thing they say is they don't work well with others. And these inquiry units really help students to collaborate within and beyond the classroom. It's very important that they collaborate, not just with the kids sitting next to them, but beyond that, the community and the globe. Developing deep understanding of content knowledge in their inquiry and their quest to find answers to things, to understand something, they internalize it and it becomes part of their schema and their knowledge. And participating in the public creation and improvement of ideas and knowledge, very, very important that they're citizens, they're practicing citizens. They're not just kids, and people say, oh, they're just kids. Well, kids grow up to be adults, and it's important to help them learn how to be good contributing citizens in our world, okay? And there are inquiry here again. It gives you some of the other things that are important here, and this is very important. This is going to kind of lead me into what I want to talk to you about inquiry, about scaffolding, about schema theory and building background knowledge. Students come to us with preconceived notions about the world. This means teaching practices must draw out and work with students' pre-existing understandings and make students' thinking visible and central to the learning. Okay, so here's an exercise for you, all right? Here's a simple phrase, blinds for sale. Depending on what you have as a preconception of what this word blinds mean, may be different from what others think, okay? So if we were together, I'd ask you to call out, and of course you can't do that. So I'm going to, in my experience of working with students and teachers, most often they see this as window blinds, blinds for sale, Venetian blinds, Roman blinds, but blinds, okay? That's generally what happens. If that's your schema. But when you see the rest of it, it changes completely. Goose hunting season opens now. So they're hunting blinds. And if you don't know what a hunting blind is, and a lot of people don't, they're either manufactured tent-like structures or handmade structures that camouflage a hunter from his or her prey. Okay, so a hunting blind for birds would keep the birds from seeing them or seeing movement, and they'd be able to shoot their prey. So blinds for sale. Here's another one. She ran quickly toward the rising sun. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Give you a second to think. 4 seconds. Okay. Most students and teachers that I've worked with see a young girl running on a beach towards the sun coming up. Very romantic. However, knowing fresh oats would be in the barn. Now that changes things. I'm suggesting it's probably not a young girl. Young girls don't usually eat oats. They don't live in the barn. So it's some sort of a barnyard animal. Most people now will say it's a horse. But it could be a cow, could be a llama, could be an alpaca. It could be any kind of a barnyard animal that's running to the barn, okay? All right. So think about what students bring to the classroom. What we know about something, they may know something totally different or think they know, all right? A competence in an area of study requires factual knowledge organized around conceptual frameworks to facilitate knowledge retrieval and application. This is important. Classroom activities should be designed to develop understanding through in-depth study of curriculum topics. Okay, in-depth. Remember that. Not a mile long and an inch deep. This has been the coverage model in schools, and we need to rethink that. Metacognition, thinking about thinking. You will become intimately aware of metacognition. If you've taken my other classes, you already know about that. It's what do you know? How do you know what you know? Okay? And so this helps students take control of their learning. Oftentimes they do things just because you tell them to, and they don't know why they're doing it, and they don't understand what it's doing for them. But if we help them to think about metacognition and practice metacognition, it gives them the opportunity to define their learning goals and monitor their own understanding. This is very, very important. Okay, and there are other things here that are very important. I'm not going to go through all of them. I want to keep this as brief as possible, but I'd like you to read through this and really start thinking about inquiry in terms of what does this mean for teaching, okay? So we have a general idea of what inquiry-based teaching and learning is all about, starting with these broad questions and this sort of investigation into these questions. And within these questions, there are lots of discrete skills that students will learn. They'll learn to writing standards, they'll learn reading standards, they'll learn content standards, but it's really embedded in this rather big picture. All right, so schema theory. So what is schema theory? I'm going to take you here. Actually, I think I might have had that open, and I did, but that's okay. I'll open it again. Okay, so schema theory. Schema theory says that that learning is organized in this sort of network, all right, and it represents one's understanding of the world, okay, and again, everyone's scheme is going to be different about certain concepts, and I'm going to take you to this second page to show you an example of that. So here's a sample schema of an egg, all right. Now, at the very basic understanding of an egg, we know that it has a yolk, it's white as a shell. Sometimes they're brown. But nonetheless, there's a white part of the egg. So when you crack an egg, you have the yolk and the white part, the egg white. But then look how now we start to branch out. We know it's a bird. We know it's feathered. Okay, different sizes, colors. We find eggs in the supermarket. Oh, Easter eggs. Oh, spoiled eggs. Good to eat, nutritious. Hens laid in nests. Oh, look, now kinds of nests. So now we're branching out. Now we got the different kinds of nests, different kinds of eggs. We've got what makes up a shell. What makes it good? How do you cook it? What makes it spoiled? What things are associated with Easter eggs? What things are associated with eggs in the grocery store? Colors, sizes. Okay, and now we have even the scientific going up, from all the way up through the taxonomy there. So see how this grows? So we may start with a concept of anything, fission, if you're doing science, fission. Here's what it is, and how do we build the schema and build that knowledge so that it grows from this single solitary word and single concept. So schema is really important. Now, the close sister to that really is building background knowledge. So here's just a very short, and this is from Marzano's book, Building Background Knowledge for Academic Achievement. Research tells us that what students already know about the content is one of the strongest indicators of how well they will learn new information. So we can't build new information on something on a foundation that's not there. Building that foundation, okay? It's critical for educators to spend more time with focused instruction to build background knowledge. It's time well spent, folks. If you build that background knowledge, the new information that you want them to get will come so much easier to them, and they won't fight you tooth and nail. They'll have something to hang it on. That's what I always tell students. You got to have something to hang the knowledge on. You just can't get these bites and pieces of stuff. You got to be able to tie it to something, okay? Lots of other good information in this article. I'd like you to read it, about how knowledge is stored in the brain. Again, how they acquire through vocabulary. And that's what I've been talking about, vocabulary, these words and concepts, very important. Okay, so I'd like you to read through that. All right, so I'm going to close that out, and I guess I don't need schema theory anymore. So as we think about introductory activities in our inquiry units, we want to keep these two ideas in mind: schema and background knowledge, okay? And there'll be more on that. I'll give you examples of how to build schema and background knowledge, activities that might be useful to you, and you will come up with some on your own. I'm going to ask you to explore the internet. It's just full of information regarding these things, all right? So the last thing on this particular item I want to really look at is the ZPD and the gradual release of responsibility. The zone of proximal development, or the ZPD, is a concept that Vygotsky posited. In this, he says that there's a certain place in a student's learning where they're ripe for learning. And this is the zone of proximal development. This is where they have some background knowledge, and we're trying to add new knowledge to that. This is where the new learning takes place. If they don't have the background knowledge, and we try to introduce this concept, Vygotsky calls that it's a frustration zone. Students are not going to get it if they don't have something to hang it on. And the other corollary there is the zone of actual development. If they already know it, and we're trying to teach it to them again, they're going to get bored really quickly. They already know that or can do that. That's the zone of actual development. And too often this happens in schools where that's why kids get bored, because they're not being challenged. Okay? Here's a graphic that really helps us to look at this learning progressions where we link the zones of proximal development, okay? And note here, you've got to build the prerequisite knowledge. You've got to find each student's starting point, and it's different for every student. We have to build the sub-skills that will help them develop those conceptual understandings. We guide and scaffold the practice. We help them create schemas, deepen and broaden conceptual understanding, and then help them to explore and then challenge some of these preconceived notions, and then provide them with activities that will help them become proficient and independent and add new knowledge, and then extend that knowledge, okay, to initiate, demonstrate, and have some sophistication, and then to be able to transfer it to another context. Very important. Transfer is very, very important. Very important. So here's a little graphic that I created about Vygotsky and the ZPD. And I'm going to use the example that I always use when I try to explain this to people, what it means to follow the ZPD or learn in the ZPD, is my dad teaching me to change the oil in my car. He was one of those dads who, if you're going to drive a car, you need how to change tire, change the oil, troubleshoot, change the a bulb in the taillight or headlight, all those things. So he's teaching me to change the oil in my car, okay? And so he's the teacher, which is the I part across here, and I am the watch person. All right, so takes me to the car, opens the hood, and says, okay, watch me. He proceeds to change the oil, talking me through it, telling me what he's doing, explaining all along the way. He might have to do it a couple of times and go back. I may ask him a question about a certain thing and he tells me and so forth and so on. And then he's like, okay, you help me. So he's still going to do it. He's going to change the oil, but I'm going to help him. So I either hold the oil and pass it to him. I pull the plug out to let the old oil drain. I do something to help him. So I'm getting my hands dirty, so to speak. Really getting dirty, actually. Okay. And then, it may be that he has to show me again, so I have to go back to the watch part. Maybe, the helping part isn't working in this particular part. So it's very recursive. It's not just straight through. Okay, so we're going around, we're going recursive like this, okay? And so I do, he's doing it and I'm helping him, all right? So then we do this enough times in this apprenticeship model where he feels pretty confident that, he's like, okay, let's see what you can do and I will help you. So now it's, I'm sort of in charge. So I'm going to change the oil. But, invariably I do something wrong and he's like stops me. He says, okay, we have to go back to. And so we go back to, he does and I help him. Okay, until I get it. Then we go back and then I do and he's helping me. And we do that several times before he's ready to cut me loose and let me do it on my own. But eventually I got it. And he says, okay, you do it and I'll watch you. Sometimes students are, first time they've got it, most of the time they don't. They get most of it, but not all of it, so we have to go back to, okay, do it again and I'll help you, all right? Or we may even have to go back to, okay, I'm going to do it again and you watch again and take this through the whole step for a certain sequence in what you're teaching them. But ultimately, you want to get to this sweet spot here where they've got it. You watch them and they've got it. They've got it forever. And so that's the model, okay? The Vygotskian model of ZPD. And this figure I think will help you as well, okay? So we've got understanding about inquiry, helping to think about creating background knowledge and building schema, what it means to teach the ZPD and building that background knowledge and what the background knowledge has to do in that sequence. And now I want to talk a little bit about Bloom's taxonomy, which is the next item down here. Okay, Bloom's taxonomy ranks academic, or not even academic, but skills in an order from low order thinking skills to high order thinking skills. And I'm going to open it up so we can actually talk about it. Okay. Briefly. Oh, it's sideways. Sorry about that. Oh well. Let's see if I can rotate this. I think I might be able to do that actually. Yeah, no, not so much. Okay, so you're going to have to look at it kind of crooked, I think. Let me see if I can get this to open up. No, it's not going to, but that's okay. It's fine. Okay, so I'm going to open it again, and you can you can print it out so you can actually see it. But I'm just going to talk you through it here. So what does it mean to teach in with Bloom's taxonomy? Okay, now this again, it goes from lower order thinking skills up to higher order thinking skills. And at the very lowest here is the idea that we remember things. Okay, so we get kids to remember things. This is where we hang on just a minute. I've lost my paper here that I had to talk with you with. So hang on. I don't know what I had it right here, but it's disappeared. Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so at the very bottom is remembering. This is recognizing something, be able to list it, describe it, identify it, retrieve it, name it, locate it, find it. Okay, these are just where you go and get something and you remember it, you pull it out of your memory, and that's just the lowest order of thinking skills. And unfortunately, folks, so much of school is remembering. What can you regurgitate back to me? We want to move beyond that. Okay. You have to be able to remember things, but then you have to move to understand it as well. And so what does it mean to understand? It means to interpret, to summarize, to infer, to paraphrase, to classify, compare, explain, exemplify. So we're moving up from lower order thinking skills. And now you have to be able to apply it. So you remember it, you understand it, and now you're going to apply it. And what does that mean? It means implementing it, carrying it out, using it, executing it. And then even higher up, we analyze it. So we've got it, we understand it, we can apply it, but now we're going to look at it critically, okay? We're going to compare it to something else. We might organize it, we might deconstruct it, we might attribute, we might outline, we might structure it different, we might integrate it into something else. And then evaluating, okay? So this is where we really look at something critically. These higher order thinking skills, this critical thinking, Okay, this is very important. We're now getting into the critical thinking piece. We don't just know it. Now we're going to really look at it critically. We're going to check it. We're going to hypothesize. We're going to critique it. We might experiment with it. We might judge. We might test. We might detect. We might monitor. So notice now these are things. These are very different from just recognizing something. And then at the very top of the higher order thinking skills is creating something. So that we've taken something, we've learned about it in depth, we can apply it, we can analyze it, we've evaluated it, and now we're going to use it to create something else. We're going to design something, we're going to construct, we're going to plan, produce, invent, devise, or make. All right? And then once you turn this on the right side, you'll see that beneath those bolded verbs are digital verbs. Notice it says Bloom's Digital Taxonomy. This is a course in literacy and technology, folks. And so what does it mean to use technology in these learning skills? And if I'm not going to read them all, but I'll just give you a couple from the bottom. To remember, being able to bookmark things, to highlight things, to be able to Google something. What does it mean to understand? Being able to do advanced searches, to be able to annotate, okay? How to apply. It means to be able to upload something, to share something, to edit something. What about analyzing? It means maybe to do a mashup, to media clipping, to linking with other things. What about evaluating? Doing blog commenting, posting, moderating, collaborating, networking. Creating, here's where we really get into the cool stuff. Programming, filming, animating, blogging, remixing, wikiing, I don't know if that's a verb or not, podcasting, and I'm going to ask you to do that, okay? So, you're going to, on this continuum as well, in terms of some of the things I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to ask you to create some things. You're going to have to first understand it, be able to apply it, analyze it, evaluate, and then you can create it, okay? So Bloom's taxonomy is very important. And then this other one really helps us to think digitally about Bloom's taxonomy, all right? And I want you to look at all these, but I'm going to scroll down here quickly just to show you that here, this is Kathy Schrock. She does a great things. And here she's actually given some apps that go along with these, okay? So remembering, here are some apps that help, kids to remember, but look up here at creating storytelling, video editing, video casting, mixing, animating, podcast. I'm going to ask you to do some of these, folks. You're going to do a digital story. You're going to do some video casting, okay? These, in the move up, okay? And then if we go down here, here's Android apps. Some of you have Androids, okay? So here's some Android apps. Here's some Google apps, all right, that support this digital taxonomy. And here are some other ones as well, okay? All right, so this is really cool, all right? And I'd like you to really spend some time with this. And actually on her website, in this website, you can actually download posters. So you might want to do that at some point, but you don't have to do it if you don't want to. All right, so Bloom's taxonomy. So I've given you some things to think about in terms of thinking about beginning our inquiry units. You don't have to begin them yet. You're just going to be thinking about it, okay? But we have to kind of build this knowledge. Remember, I'm trying to model exactly what I'm asking you to do. That we build background knowledge, we scaffold. You may not know all this stuff. I don't expect you to, but now I'm giving you things to read. I've given you some things to think about. I've given you a little bit of lecture. If we were together, we do exercises together. I tried to do, a little bit of those schema exercises with you. I've helped you to think about the taxonomy in terms of what you're going to ask kids to do, and we want to try to build from the remembering to the creating. But I want you to these are all things you need to sort of start to internalize, okay? Things to remember and understand, okay? That's what your goal, remember and understand, all right? You're going to apply them soon enough, all right? Okay, so that's it for this week, folks. I think you've had enough of me this week. This is a kind of intense first week that but I've tried to parse it out a little bit, so they're in small bites. You can do one item at a time, and it's progressive. I'd like you to start at the top and move down. If you start at the bottom, it can be a little confusing. All right, I've also given you some things to think about Common Core, because that's going to figure in very prominently with what we do, and so forth. And then literacy, and I'm not going to talk anymore about that except ask you to engage in some conversations about literacy. Okay, that's it, folks. Have a great day.